Up next, we have Duane Brown, CEO and Head of Strategy at Take Some Risk Inc. Supercharge your shopping feed with proven strategies for Google in 2021 and beyond. In this cutting-edge session, you'll learn why the 80-20 rule applies to your shopping feed and why SKU optimization is the easier way to scale your revenue. Duane will give you trusted tips on using smart shopping and automation to make your brand immensely more profitable. Welcome to the stage, Duane.
Hi, my name is Duane Brown and I run an advertising agency. We work with a lot of e-commerce and direct-to-consumer brands across North America and Europe. Today I'm going to talk about Google Shopping and how to 2x your ROAS in 2021. We're going to cover what makes a great shopping feed in 2021, why the 80-20 rule applies to your shopping feed. We'll talk a little bit about SKU optimization, and then we will end off with smart shopping and automation, which is becoming a bigger part of Google's focus as they head into the rest of the year. But before I get to that, I want to really dive into the principles of Google Shopping and debunk some myths that are out there. The first myth is if you're running search ads, you don't need to run shopping ads. That couldn't be further from the truth because on any given day, 70% of all searches according to Google involve a shopping ad. And so if you're not running shopping ads, then that means you're missing an opportunity to convince more people to click on your ad, come to your site, and make a purchase. We also see a lot of brands think that their shopping feed is not as important as their ad account and campaign structure. A lot of brands and agencies think they can campaign structure their way out of an unsophisticated shopping feed. However, your shopping feed is the heart and soul of shopping. It's kind of like video, garbage in, garbage out. If you have a garbage video, your video at the end of the day is going to be garbage as well. If your shopping feed is not as advanced or sophisticated as it can be, you're going to see less performance and a worse ROAS than if you had spent the time to work on your shopping feed. The other myth is around the holidays. We often find brands think it's far superior to spend their time optimizing bids at Christmas and Black Friday than it is to strategically think where should we place the ad spend that we have. And the reason this is wrong is because during Black Friday, all things being equal, even though there is an increase in demand, we see lots of brands also increase their supply. And if the supply and the demand is increasing at the same rates, then the only thing we've actually done is increase the floor with which we need to bid. But even if the floor is increased with your bid, we found with clients that if we leave bids alone and actually just focused on our ad spend and where we spend our money, we tend to make more profit than if we spend the time trying to fiddle with bids, especially with the fact that data is not real time during Black Friday. Data is anywhere from 12 to 24 hours delayed because Google and other ad platforms have not built a system that allows them to take the amount of data they're seeing at Black Friday and understand what's going on at a faster pace. Which means that we also are not seeing data in real time and can't make decisions based on what's happened in the past because we don't have a full picture. Every Black Friday is just a little bit more crazy than the last, and I can guarantee you for this year, it is far better to work on where your ad spend goes than to fix your bids. But now that we talked about those, let's talk about your shopping feed. These are your shopping feed attributes that are required, i.e., if you're going to run a shopping feed, you've got to have these fields filled out for each of your SKUs. And an attribute is simple as a tag that identifies one SKU from another. It could be your SKU ID, it could be your product title, it could be your GTIN, your price, it even could be the image to the product page. But let's dig into each of these individually and see how we set them up at our agency to set ourselves and our clients up for success. Now your SKU ID is literally just an ID that tells you one SKU from another. It could be as simple as one SKU tells you it's a white t-shirt small, and another SKU ID tells you it's a white t-shirt large. You want to make sure that your SKU ID makes sense and it's easy to understand because each one of your SKUs is going to need a unique ID that isn't over 50 characters long. But then we get into something like the product title. Now, what makes the product title really important is because next to your price and your image, it's what people see when they do a search on Google. And even though you could have something like colored trim tee as your product title, which might be what you pull from your website into Google Merchant Center, it's probably not the best product title you could have. Because you want a product title that not only satisfies Google, but also satisfies the people who are doing their search. Now, if you look at this Dolce & Gabbana t-shirt, we do see on the website it would have been called a colored trim tee. But when we customize and optimize our product titles for clients, we want to add things like brand, product, age, gender, material, size, and weight. And so that we end up with a product title that is more on the right. And so you've got Dolce & Gabbana, colored print trim tee, retailer's name, because it could be a third-party retailer who's selling it. We have women's short sleeve t-shirt, women's shirt. I'd say the only thing wrong with this product title is you say women's shirt a couple times, but otherwise it's a pretty good product title. And when people see this product title in your product image, they're more likely to click on it because it tells them exactly more about the product that may or may not be conveyed in just your product image alone. And then the last thing to remember is that anything above 125 characters will usually get truncated on Google SERP, so you always want to put the most important keywords at the front of your product title. Now you've got your product description. Yes, you can pull your product description from your site, but we like to augment our product description by taking our product title and add it to the bottom of our product description. We also like to make sure that there isn't any code inside of our product description or any HTML, because sometimes there's a product page that has weird HTML in it, but it's invisible to the naked eye. We also want to make sure we limit bullet points, but we also want to make sure that we understand every word within our product description, because Google doesn't understand context very well. Google doesn't know the difference between chocolate milk and milk chocolate. Obviously, one is when you drink, one is when you eat, but to Google, those are the same thing. And a great example is that we have a client called Rose and Rex. They sell lots of kids' toys. One of the toys that we sell is a toy motorcycle you make out of blocks. Now, obviously, if this is a toy motorcycle, you make it out of wooden blocks, it's not real. But when Google read our product description, they thought the motorcycle was real, which meant that they would show our ad when people did searches for Harley-Davidson, Suzuki, or other motorcycle brands. Which meant that we now had to go in and add negative keywords around motorcycle brands, motorcycle parts, anything involving motorcycles so that Google would understand that we don't actually sell real motorcycles and it's just a toy product. So when you're reviewing your shopping feed, make sure you understand each word and make sure there's no way that Google can misunderstand contextually what you sell, because if you think they can, it is better you add negative keywords now than find out later you spent tons of money on a long weekend. The link to your product page is literally just a link. Make sure there's no UTM parameters in that URL. It's just a clean URL. Same thing with your image link to your main product image. Again, make sure it's just a clean URL. Make sure that the image works. Make sure there's no UTM parameters in there. Also, make sure it's a high-res image and at minimum 650 to 850 pixels wide. Bigger is better, but that's the minimum you need to do. And then obviously make sure there's no UTM parameters. That way, it's easy for Google to not only pull your image and all the URLs, but it's also easy for them to read your image. And then also make sure that if you have additional images on your product page, you pull them into the attribute that is additional image link attribute. And you can have up to 10 additional images, which you can show off the product in use. If the product comes in a box with other accessories or pieces, you can show the accessories and pieces of that box. You can also show the product in staging, so i.e. the product being made. With additional images on Google, there's lots of opportunities to add more rich data because Google will use machine learning and technology to try to understand what your product is based on the additional images. And then you want to think of availability. Now, availability is important because if a product is not in stock and it's out of stock or in pre-order, Google's less likely to show that product. But if a product is in stock, then Google's going to show it. But if your feed says that a product is in stock and your website says that it's out of stock, Google will apply to automatically update your shopping feed to say that the product is out of stock. But the reverse is also true. If your shopping feed says that a product is out of stock, but on your website it now says that it's in stock, Google will try to update your feed and tell you that this product is in stock so you can rank for it during SERP. Google doesn't always do a great job of this. They're trying to scan hundreds of thousands, if not millions of sites on any given day. And so making sure that you update your shopping feed at least every 24 hours, if not every 12 hours, so that you've got the latest information, makes it easier for Google to make sure they're showing the right products at the right time when someone does a search. Price, it's pretty simple. Just make sure you got the price in there. No currency symbol, no comma, just the straight up price for the product. And then your brand, if you sell your own products and you're a D2C brand, obviously put your brand name. If you're a third-party retailer and you sell other people's brands, make sure their brand name is spelled correctly and the format's correct, right? That way when people do searches, they know what the product is that's coming up. And then you want to make sure you've got a global trade item number or a GTIN. This is anywhere from a 9 to 13-digit code, sometimes alphanumeric code that identifies one product from another product. It could identify one well-known kids toy from another well-known kids toy. That way, if lots of retailers are selling those specific kids toys, Google knows that this one toy is sold by all these retailers, while the other toy is sold by these retailers, which may not be the same retailers. So if your product has a GTIN, then you want to include it in your shopping feed, 100%. Now, depending on where you are in the world, this GTIN could be a UPC in North America, it could be an EAN in Europe. If you're in Japan, it's a JAN. And then if you sell books internationally, you've got the ISBN or the International Standard Book Number. If your competitors have their GTIN in their shopping feed and you don't, Google could potentially delist your shopping feed and give you a Tier 2 status, which means that your shopping ads don't appear as often as they could. And then lastly, if you don't have a GTIN but you have a manufacturer parts number because you're a manufacturer, then you want to include your manufacturer parts number in your shopping feed as well. But all things being equal, we found that most brands don't include their GTIN, and if you want a competitive edge in 2021, include your GTIN in all your products, whether you sell 1,000 SKUs or you've got 500,000 SKUs. It is a lot of work, but the effort pays off in the long run. Then you want to think about condition. What is the condition of your product? Is it new, refurbished, used? If it isn't new and it's refurbished or used, you definitely want to include that because we're seeing over the last couple of years that more and more people are buying secondhand and used products, and it's good for Google to know whether your product is new or not. Now, your Google product category is simply a taxonomy that helps Google identify at a granular level what kind of product you sell. It could help identify everything from erotic books from horror books. It could help identify that you sell a kimono versus robes or other products that are sort of worn at nighttime potentially, or worn for a fancy event in the case of a kimono. And so if Google has picked the wrong product category for your SKUs, you want to make sure you pick the right ones and use Google's taxonomy to do that. So these are all your shopping feed attributes that are required at minimum. It may seem easy to get them right, but we've often seen brands make mistakes that can hurt their performance because then their shopping feed doesn't rank as well as it should. Now you want to supercharge your shopping feed. And the way to supercharge your shopping feed is by adding these additional attributes that we find a lot of brands don't use. If you sell fashion or clothing accessories, you want to look at things like age group. Is this product for kids or not for kids? You want to look at gender. Is this product unisex, men's, women's? Is this product, has a different pattern? So it could be tartan versus plaid. You want to look at color, material, or even your system size. It could be everything from a size 9 shoe in North America to a size 44 shoe if you're in the UK. Making sure you fill out each of these attributes, especially if you're in clothing or fashion, will not only help you rank really well in Google SERP, But if you want to use Google's free listing, which is Google's shopping tab, then you want to make sure you have these attributes filled out because they are the minimum requirement you need to get on the shopping tab within Google. But let's say you don't sell fashion stuff. Let's say you sell cell phones. There are other attributes you could add and augment your shopping feed with, which include availability date, if you've got a subscription cost, an installment cost. If you sell a multi-pack of a product, that's included as well. So you always want to make sure that depending on what your product you sell, you look at all the available attributes you could put in your shopping feed and make the best shopping feed possible. You don't want to rely on Google's tech or their AI to understand what you sell because they often will get it wrong. And if they get it wrong, that's going to penalize you in an unnecessary way. The shopping feed is a lot of work, but it's worth it in the long run. Think about it like sports practice. You can't often equate the value of sports practice to you being successful, but come game day in the NBA championship, you're going to be glad that you went to practice. Come Q4, you're going to be glad you worked on your shopping feed. So now we want to talk about the 80-20 rule, what it is and how it applies to shopping. The 80-20 rule basically says that 20% of your time will often equal 80% of your results. But we often find with brands, they spend 80% of their time on what equals 20% of their results, which doesn't make any sense. But we found with shopping that a small number of SKUs, let's say 20%, will often equal 80% of their revenue. And if you can figure out what set of SKUs equal the majority of your revenue, that's where you should spend your time when it comes to shopping. The one caveat is what we call the long tail, which is written by Chris Anderson. If you sell hundreds or you've got 500,000 SKUs, then you might have such a long tail with revenue and sales from shopping that there's no way a small number of SKUs are going to equal all your revenue. But we find with brands, that's the exception to the rule. Most brands don't have 100,000 SKUs. Most brands have under 10,000 SKUs or under 50,000 SKUs. And so you want to really use the 80-20 rule to figure out which minority of SKUs you have make up the majority of your product revenue. And then when it comes to SKU optimization, how do you apply what you just learned with the 80-20 rule to optimizing your SKUs? Well, that's easy. SKU optimization is really just identifying and making the decision of what SKUs you should keep or what SKUs you should discontinue. Because the reality is, just because you sell something on your website doesn't mean we should sell that with shopping. Let me say that again. Just because you sell something on your site does not mean we should sell that product using shopping ads. It could be a simple fact that people will search for it, click on it, and never buy that product. We see this with clients all the time. They have a product that sells well on their website, but it does not sell well through shopping ads, and so we don't include that in our shopping campaigns because we end up losing money. That allows us to reuse and redeploy that ad spend to other SKUs that are definitely going to make us money. If you think of a first-party retailer like a D2C brand that sells their own goods, one of their challenges when they do SKU optimization is they have tons of SKUs and they have a stable profit margin, but maybe all of their SKUs are kind of the same, where the only difference maybe is color, kind of like our client Lark. Well, if that's the case, what we start to look at is things like size, gender, color, version, even seasonality to understand what SKUs sell when. Because if you understand what SKUs sell when based on size, color, gender, and version or variety, you can understand which SKUs you need to sell when and understand which SKUs you should push. Because at the end of the day, a minority of your SKUs will make up a majority of your revenue. On the reverse side, if you're a third-party retailer and you sell lots of other people's products and you have lots of other brands, the issue you might have is you might have tons of brands and each brand has tons of SKUs. Your profit margin might be completely different across all those brands and SKUs, and then you might be impacted by seasonality more just due to the variety of products that you sell. Which means that I only look at not just SKUs, I also look at the brands within each SKU to understand which brands sell when and what SKUs sell with each of those brands. But then I also start to look at, again, size, color, gender, version, or variety, and seasonality to understand which of those brands and SKUs sell at what point of the year. Because I can guarantee you, if you sell tons of different brands, there's probably a minority of brands and SKUs that make up a majority of your revenue. And though everybody wants to be like Amazon, To run a business like Amazon is really hard, and it's far superior to focus on a small number of brands and SKUs and make more money than create more work for yourself by trying to be the Amazon of everything. Now, we work with an outdoor sports brand that has 219 different brands, but when we looked at SKU optimization based on what we just talked about, what I actually found out is that 5 of their brands make up 50% of their revenue. Think about that. 50% of your revenue comes from 5 of your brands. That means the other 50% of your revenue is tied up in only 214 brands. And I'd rather spend half my time on those 5 brands figuring out how to make more money than spend half my time on the majority of those brands, 214 in this case, struggling to make as much money. So the last part I want to talk about here is smart shopping with Google Ads. Automation and smart shopping has come a long way, but there's some things you need to think about if you're going to run smart shopping in 2021. Now, when you run smart shopping, one thing you need to think about is that smart shopping campaigns appear under search, display, YouTube, which Google owns, and Gmail. And if you don't check the right setting, you also have your smart shopping campaign act as a remarketing campaign, which means that your smart shopping campaign will often look better than your standard shopping campaign, which traditionally does not include remarketing. And when we think about smart shopping campaign, we think about what SKUs or brands do we sell that get us at least 50 sales a month. And the reason we pick 50 is because we want to have consistent sales every month so we can feed Google data. Trying to run smart shopping during non-peak season is hard because you don't have enough data coming into your ad account for Google to understand what they need to do. Google needs data to understand what to do. Google doesn't always get it right, but if you don't have the data, your job becomes twice as hard as does Google's. We also think about, do we want to run our top SKUs in smart shopping? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It depends on competition. It depends on how many SKUs there are. But one of the things we think about is, what is smart shopping good for? And then we think about, which campaigns do we want to have? Do we want to own tons of campaigns? Do we want to own a small number of campaigns when we run smart shopping? So just understanding how many campaigns you're going to own and manage is really important. And then the last thing, which always feels a little bit weird to say, is that smart shopping can start off great, but we see at times that with some clients, even though you have sales coming in, performance just disintegrates over time. And so you don't want to set it and forget it when it comes to your smart shopping campaign. You always want to make sure you keep an eye on it, because just because it started out great in January doesn't mean it's going to be great come August. And then also, you also want to mix your shopping campaign types, right? No client we have has 100% standard shopping campaigns or 100% smart shopping campaigns. Every client has a mix, because you need to understand what the right mix is in order to be successful. And like we talked about during this talk, always make sure you've got the best shopping feed possible, because your shopping feed is the heart and soul of shopping ads. And if you get your shopping feed right, your job is 80% easier on any given day, but twice on Sunday. My name's Duane Brown. Thank you for my talk. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you see a successful Q3 and 4, because shopping campaigns is going to be a big part of the rest of 2021.